December 5th, 2025. Netflix announces an $83 billion acquisition, the largest streaming deal in history. Every tech journalist, every business analyst, every Wall Street expert is talking about content libraries, market dominance, subscriber growth. But they're all missing what's actually being bought. This isn't about movies. This isn't about shows. This isn't even about entertainment. What Netflix just purchased is something humanity has been desperately seeking since the beginning of consciousness itself. Connection. Belonging. The feeling that we are not alone in this indifferent universe. And they know something about us that we're only beginning to understand. Something dark. Something we've been trying not to see. They're buying our loneliness, and we're going to let them, because we don't know what else to do with it. Look around you right now. I mean, actually look. How many people do you see staring at screens? On the train, in the coffee shop, walking down the street, sitting across from each other at dinner, both on their phones? We've normalized this. We call it modern life. But something shifted in the last decade that we haven't fully named yet. Something fundamental about how we relate to each other, to ourselves, to reality itself. And streaming platforms didn't just capitalize on that shift, they helped create it. And now they're building entire business models around sustaining it. In 2025, loneliness became a global epidemic, not metaphorically, clinically. The World Health Organization declared it a public health crisis comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Surgeon generals across multiple countries issued warnings. Mental health professionals started calling it the defining crisis of our generation. But here's what they're not telling you. This loneliness isn't just psychological. It's not just about lacking physical proximity to other humans. It's deeper than that. It's spiritual. It's existential. It's the kind of loneliness that comes from being surrounded by people but feeling completely unseen, from having 500 friends online but no one who actually knows you, from being more connected than any generation in human history while feeling more isolated than ever before. And streaming platforms saw this. They saw us drowning, and instead of throwing us a lifeline, they threw us an anchor, disguised as entertainment. They created something called parasocial relationships, emotional bonds with people who don't know we exist, one-sided connections with actors, characters, content creators, personalities who live in our screens and our minds, but never in our actual lives. And here's the thing that nobody wants to admit. These relationships feel real. They feel meaningful. They feel like connection. You watch the same show every night, not because it's entertaining, but because those characters feel like friends. You follow content creators whose daily vlogs make you feel like you're part of their life. You get genuinely emotional when your favorite actor goes through a breakup, even though you've never met them and never will. You schedule your week around new episode releases because missing them feels like missing out on time with people you care about. And the wildest part? You know it's not real. You know these people don't know you. You know this connection is manufactured, one way, completely artificial. But it doesn't matter. Because in that moment, when you're watching, when you're engaged, when you're invested in these digital lives, you don't feel lonely anymore. And Netflix knows this. They have the data. They know exactly how many hours you spend watching shows where the main draw isn't the plot, but the characters you've come to feel attached to. They know which content keeps you coming back not for the story, but for the parasocial relationship you've developed.
They know that shows with strong character development and consistent casts have higher retention rates, not because they're better written, but because viewers form bonds. They know that reality shows and vlogs and behind-the-scenes content perform well because they create the illusion of real connection, of actually knowing these people, of being part of their world. The $83 billion acquisition isn't about buying HBO's back catalog or securing exclusive rights to blockbuster films. It's about buying the infrastructure to create more of these relationships, more characters you'll care about, more personalities you'll feel connected to, more content that makes you feel less alone without actually connecting you to anyone real. They're not building a streaming service anymore. They're building what sociologists are calling third places. But not physical third places like cafes or parks or community centers where people actually gather, virtual third places. Digital spaces where you feel like you belong without ever having to show up, without ever having to be vulnerable, without ever having to risk actual human connection. And the data is chilling. Platforms with live interaction features, with chat functions, with comment sections that feel active and responsive, they see up to 40% more engagement time, not because the content is 40% better, but because the interaction, even though it's still mostly parasocial, even though you're commenting to thousands of strangers and not really connecting with anyone, it feels reciprocal. It feels like you're part of something. And that feeling, that manufactured sense of belonging, is so powerful that we'll trade hours of our lives for it every single day. But here's where it gets really dark. Here's where this stops being about entertainment and starts being about something much more fundamental to the human condition. These parasocial relationships, these one-sided bonds, this endless consumption of other people's lives through screens, it's not new. We've always had this. Humans have always formed connections to stories, to characters, to figures we admire from a distance. What's new is the scale, the intensity, the way these relationships have started to replace real connection instead of supplementing it, the way we've started to prefer the safety of parasocial bonds over the risk of real intimacy. And if we're being honest, we can understand why. Real relationships are hard. They're messy. They require vulnerability. They require showing up when you don't feel like it. They require being seen in your worst moments, your most broken states, your least impressive versions. They require reciprocity, effort, maintenance, care. They can hurt you. They can reject you. They can leave. Parasocial relationships don't require any of that. You can love a character who will never disappoint you. You can feel close to a creator who will never demand anything from you. You can build entire emotional worlds around people who exist only on your terms, only when you choose to engage, only in the ways that feel comfortable. It's connection without risk, belonging without vulnerability, companionship without effort. And for a generation that's grown up with unprecedented levels of social anxiety, performance pressure, and existential uncertainty, it's exactly what we think we need. But here's what the mystics and philosophers and depth psychologists have been trying to tell us for centuries. What we think we need and what we actually need are not the same thing. What feels safe in the moment often leads to deeper suffering in the long term. And what we're avoiding by choosing parasocial comfort over real connection is the exact thing that would actually heal our loneliness. Carl Jung said that loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you. Real loneliness isn't about being alone. It's about being with others but still feeling unseen, still feeling misunderstood, still feeling like no one actually knows who you are beneath the performance you're constantly maintaining. And parasocial relationships can never solve that because they're not reciprocal. They can never see you. They can never know you. They can never witness the things you need witnessed. They're mirrors that only reflect back what you project onto them. And we're spending hours every day staring at those mirrors, mistaking the reflection for connection. Martin Buber, the philosopher, talked about two kinds of relationships: it relationships and I-thou relationships. It relationships are transactional, functional, surface level. You relate to the other as an object, a thing to be used or consumed or experienced. I-thou relationships are different. They're mutual, reciprocal, vulnerable. You relate to the other as a full person, a subject, a consciousness as real and complex as your own. And here's the thing: all parasocial relationships are I-it relationships by definition. You're relating to a character, an image, an idea of a person, never to an actual person. You can't have an I-thou relationship with someone on a screen who doesn't know you exist. But we're starting to forget what I-thou relationships even feel like. We're starting to forget what it means to be truly seen by another person, to be known in our complexity and still accepted, to be vulnerable and not destroyed by it. We're losing the capacity for that kind of connection because we're not practicing it. We're practicing parasocial consumption instead. And like any skill, connection atrophies when unused. The longer we spend in the comfort of one-sided relationships, the harder it becomes to navigate the discomfort of real ones. And this is what Netflix and every other streaming platform is betting $83 billion on. They're betting that we've reached a tipping point, that we've become so disconnected, so anxious, so performance-oriented, so afraid of real vulnerability, that we'll choose parasocial comfort permanently, that we'll build our emotional lives around characters and creators and curated personas instead of risking actual intimacy, that we'll trade the depth and mess and beauty of real human connection for the safety and predictability of relationship through screens. Now I want you to do something, and this might feel uncomfortable, but stay with me. I want you to pause for a moment and ask yourself honestly, when was the last time you had a real conversation? Not small talk, not surface pleasantries, not the performance you put on at work or the version of yourself you present to acquaintances, but a real conversation where you said something true, something vulnerable, something that mattered to you in a way that felt risky to share. When was the last time you were fully present with another human being without checking your phone, without thinking about what to say next, without maintaining the performance? For some of you, it might have been yesterday. For others, it might have been months, years. And there's no judgment in that. This isn't about shame. This is about noticing, about seeing clearly what's actually happening. Because the streaming wars, the competition for your attention, the $83 billion acquisition, none of it is really about entertainment. It's about who can most effectively monetize the void we're all feeling. Who can turn our loneliness into profit? Who can create just enough simulated connection to keep us coming back without ever actually connecting us to anything real? The philosopher Simone Weil said that attention is the rarest and purest form of generosity. And streaming platforms have figured out how to capture our attention, to hold it, to keep it engaged for hours and hours and hours. But they're not teaching us how to give that attention to each other. They're not teaching us how to be present, how to listen, how to see another person fully. They're teaching us the opposite. They're teaching us that attention is a commodity to be consumed, that connection can be commodified, that belonging can be bought through subscription fees. And maybe that's fine. Maybe there's nothing wrong with parasocial relationships as entertainment, as occasional comfort, as one small piece of a rich and varied emotional life. But when they become the primary source of our sense of connection, when we start to prefer the safety of one-sided bonds over the risk of real intimacy, when we find ourselves more invested in fictional characters than in the actual people around us, that's when we need to ask harder questions. That's when we need to look at what we're actually choosing and why.
Because here's the truth that no streaming platform will ever tell you. The loneliness you're feeling, the void you're trying to fill with content, with characters, with endless hours of watching other people live while you sit still, it can't be filled that way. It can only be filled through real connection, through vulnerability, through showing up as your actual self and risking being seen, through choosing presence over distraction, through the hard, messy, beautiful work of relating to other human beings, not as objects or images or ideas, but as full, complex consciousness, just like yours. The author Johann Hari spent years researching depression and anxiety, and he discovered something that contradicted everything we've been told. He found that the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety, it's connection. That people don't get addicted to substances or behaviors because of the substances or behaviors themselves. They get addicted because they're trying to escape pain, loneliness, disconnection, trauma. And the way out of addiction isn't through willpower or abstinence. It's through building real connections that make the escape less necessary, that make the present moment, even with all its difficulty, bearable, that make being alive feel worth it. And we're addicted to streaming, to scrolling, to consuming other people's lives, not because the content is so good, but because being present in our own lives feels unbearable, because the loneliness is too heavy to sit with, because we don't know how to connect anymore, and the thought of trying feels too scary, too vulnerable, too risky. So we escape into parasocial comfort, into manufactured belonging, into the illusion of connection that never demands anything real from us. Netflix is betting $83 billion that this is permanent, that we've crossed a threshold we can't come back from, that the future of human connection is mediated through screens, curated through algorithms, monetized through subscriptions. And maybe they're right. Maybe this is just what evolution looks like in the digital age. Maybe parasocial relationships are the new normal and will adapt and it'll be fine. Or maybe we're in the middle of the most significant shift in human consciousness since the invention of written language, and we haven't even begun to understand the consequences. Maybe we're trading something essential, something that makes us human, for something that only looks like connection from a distance. Philosopher Martin Heidegger talked about technology not as tools we use, but as a way of revealing the world. Technology doesn't just give us new capabilities, it changes how we see, how we think, how we exist. And streaming technology, social media, digital connection, it's revealing the world to us in a very specific way, as something to be consumed, as content, as entertainment, as a constant stream of images and stories and personalities that we can engage with without ever having to be truly present, truly vulnerable, truly connected. And the danger isn't that this way of seeing is wrong, it's that it's becoming the only way we know how to see. We're forgetting that there are other ways to be, other ways to relate, other ways to exist that don't require constant stimulation, constant content, constant digital mediation. We're forgetting what it feels like to sit in silence with another person and not feel uncomfortable, to be bored and not immediately reach for a screen, to be alone without feeling lonely, to be with others without performing. So what do? How do we navigate a world where loneliness is a business model, where connection is being systematically replaced by its simulation, where the infrastructure of society is being designed to keep us engaged with screens rather than with each other? I don't have a complete answer. I don't think anyone does. But I have some thoughts,
some practices, some ways of resisting the pull toward parasocial comfort and choosing real connection instead. First, we have to notice. We have to see clearly what we're actually doing and why. Not with judgment, not with shame, but with honest awareness. How many hours are you spending with characters versus with real people? How much of your emotional life is invested in parasocial relationships? When you feel lonely, what's your first instinct? To reach out to someone real or to turn on a show? There's no right answer, but there is your answer, and knowing it matters. Second, we have to practice. Connection is a skill. Vulnerability is a muscle. Presence is a practice. And like any skill or muscle or practice, it atrophies when unused. So we have to use it. We have to have those awkward conversations. We have to reach out even when it feels uncomfortable. We have to show up as our actual selves even when the performance feels safer. We have to risk being seen, risk being rejected, risk being misunderstood, because that risk is the price of real connection. And real connection is the only thing that actually heals loneliness.
Third, we have to create spaces for connection to happen. Real connection requires time, unstructured time, time where nothing is happening except being present with another person. No agenda, no goal, no performance, just presence. And our world has systematically eliminated those spaces. We're always busy, always productive, always consuming content. We have to actively create pockets of time where we're just with people, where we're available for whatever emerges, where connection can happen organically instead of being scheduled and optimized and mediated through screens. Fourth, we have to be willing to feel the discomfort. Because here's the thing about choosing real connection over parasocial comfort. It's harder. It's messier. It requires more from us. There will be moments of awkwardness, moments of vulnerability that feel excruciating, moments where we don't know what to say or how to be, and our instinct will be to escape back to the comfort of screens, to retreat into parasocial relationships where we don't have to risk anything. We have to resist that instinct. We have to sit with the discomfort. We have to learn that we can survive it, that it won't destroy us, that on the other side of that discomfort is something real. And finally, we have to remember what we're actually looking for. We're not looking for entertainment. We're not looking for content. We're not looking for curated personas or perfect characters or idealized relationships. We're looking for the same thing humans have always been looking for: to be seen, to be known, to feel like we matter, to feel like we're not alone in this strange and difficult experience of being alive. And no streaming platform, no matter how much they spend, no matter how sophisticated their algorithms become, can give us that. Only other humans can. Only real connection can. Only the vulnerable, messy, beautiful, terrifying practice of showing up as ourselves and letting others see us can. The Netflix acquisition is a bet, a massive $83 billion bet on what we'll choose: comfort or connection, safety or vulnerability, parasocial relationships or real intimacy. And they're betting on comfort, on safety, on parasocial, because that's what the data suggests we want. That's what our behavior indicates we're choosing. But data only captures what we're doing, not what we actually need, not what would actually make us less lonely, not what would actually fill the void we're all feeling. The screen in front of you right now, whether it's your TV or your phone or your computer, it's showing you this message. And when it ends, when this video stops,
there will be a moment, a brief window where you can choose. You can let the algorithm take you to the next video. You can keep consuming, keep scrolling, keep engaging with content that makes you feel less alone without actually connecting you to anyone. Or you can pause. You can close the screen. You can sit with whatever comes up in that silence. You can reach out to someone real. You can practice presence. You can choose connection. Netflix is betting $83 billion that you'll choose the screen. That we all will. That loneliness is easier to monetize than to heal. That we've become so dependent on parasocial comfort that we can't imagine anything else. But the future of streaming is already here. It's sophisticated. It's everywhere. It's designed to keep you engaged forever. The real question isn't what streaming will become. The real question is what you will become. Whether you'll let your capacity for real connection atrophy completely, whether you'll spend your life consuming other people's experiences instead of living your own, whether you'll fill the loneliness with simulation or with the real, vulnerable, messy work of being human with other humans. The choice is yours. The screen will always be there. The content will always be waiting. The parasocial relationships will always offer that comfortable, safe, risk-free sense of belonging. But so will the world. So will the people around you. So will the possibility of real connection if you're brave enough to reach for it. Netflix is making their bet. Now you have to make yours.